on where it is you happen to be located. I thank you all for your time. Thank you for coming by for this webinar. I hope to make it, we hope to make it as good a use of your time as possible. Remember, you do have the ability to ask questions, so we're going to have a Q&A period at the end of the presentation, but also please feel free to ask them during the presentation using the question chat functionality here with the GoToWebinar. My name is Paul Terrell. I'm one of the regional directors for Men&Mice. My territory is on the east coast of North America. I'm here with Eidar Thorstensen. He is with professional services. He's the engineer. He's the one you want to listen to, unlike myself. So after this quick introduction, we really don't have an agenda because we want to focus really all this time on the demo. But I do want to bring a couple things to your attention, really the point of why we're having this meeting. First off, a little bit about how we go about development efforts and new releases. Some of you who are longer time clients with Men&Mice are probably familiar with the process we follow. But really our development efforts are based on really two driving factors. First off, there are general market trends and changes in technology. As I'm sure most of you know, this is a very dynamic industry. Really, the whole importance of the DNS, DHCP, and IPAM space has changed dramatically over the last couple of years, let alone the last decade or so. So we are constantly striving to keep on top of changes in the industry, but also we always solicit and really take heavily into account input from our customers. So what Eidar is going to be walking you through today is really going to reflect those two input factors. This really led to kind of two big things. Further improvement of our existing suite. So it's one thing that we're constantly striving to make our existing products better. And he'll show you some of the new bells and whistles and functionalities in our existing suite, but also at least the development of new products. And really what I'm very excited about personally, and I know our whole company is the unveiling of our new DDI appliances and also our DNS caching appliances. So while we still have the software overlay, because our philosophy always is that the overlay really does meet the needs of the vast majority of organizations, we can now complement that overlay with these appliances where they make sense. And these appliances, while they have been recently announced to the public, they've actually been deployed for quite some time in some of our larger client environments, and we're really excited to say that they've been extremely well received. So I don't want to take too much of Eidar's thunder, so I'm going to pass controls over to him now. But again, during this presentation, any questions you might have, do not hesitate to ask using that functionality. So I'm going to take it away, Eidar.
Yes, hello, I'm Eidar and I'm from the professional services, like Paul mentioned. So I hope that you can now see my screen. So I want to take you through a quick intro as well before I go through demonstrating the new features in Men&Mice. So like Paul mentioned, we have just officially released our appliance product line. So in version 6.4, we released the DNS and DHCP appliance. So it's based on IAC bind and IAC DHCP, but we actually do build it ourselves from the official code, but optimize it for the hardware of our appliances. We offer it either as virtual or physical, so it basically depends on your preference which you choose. But the main benefit from using our appliances would be something like delegating the responsibility of maintaining a bind server, for instance, to Men&Mice. So we often see customers running very old bind servers, no worrying about updating the OS or bind running even a very old version of bind which has vulnerabilities, and would basically take that responsibility away from you. And once you upgrade Men&Mice, we will upgrade the appliance and the services running on that. So that means bind and the DHV. With version 6.4.5, we also released the caching appliance, caching DNS appliance. It's based on the unbound DNS server. It's very high performance. It performs like something like 500,000 queries per second at the very peak. It has been around for a couple of years, but since 6.4.5, it was the management of it was integrated into the Men&Mice suite, and it's visible along with any other appliance in the product. So that's what the new products basically are. I will go through that later in the demo. But as for new features in Men&Mice, we have, like with the appliances, there is much more need for improved update management. So when a new version of Men&Mice is available and an administrator logs into the Men&Mice management console, he gets a notification that there is a new version available, and he will be able to download that and install the new version entirely through the console. The agents and DNS and DHCP server controllers are updated automatically, just like before. But the appliances are selectively upgraded, so you can select when to upgrade an appliance, because there is a bit downtime. Just like if you upgrade bind, you need to restart that, so you don't want to restart all of the bind servers at the same time. So the administrator basically chooses when to do that. And also it adds support for when just a single component needs upgrading. So Men&Mice releases a new version purely based on if a bind needs to be upgraded. We have seen in the past that bind has been patched in the official repositories, and we would respond very soon and provide an update, and only that no other component of Men&Mice would be updated at that time. So for other areas of the system, IP address management is probably the biggest improvement. There are several new features for improved IP address management. First and foremost, the subnet containers, which is a new kind of when you're viewing your IP addresses, IP address ranges. We also have a new type there called container, and it should only contain subnets, not IP addresses like the other ranges in our system. We have also introduced a device and interface inventory. A device is basically a custom object where you can specify custom attributes, and each device can have multiple interfaces, and each interface can be linked to multiple IP addresses. Although this has been a part of the system for a couple of years, it's not been exposed in the UIs, but has now been implemented in the US as well in version 6.4. And this has actually been used by a few customers using custom interfaces for a couple of years. Another big thing is the ability to view subnet utilization history over time. So you can see trends in pool utilization or just generic subnet utilization, and might be able to predict when a subnet is going to fill up. Along with those lines, we are also now able to specify the criteria for when an IP address is considered to be free, or actually when it's considered to be assigned. It used to be hard-coded that it's just if anything exists for the IP, it's considered to be assigned. But today you can specify like if you don't even want DNS records to assign an IP according to Men&Mice. But I guess more important is the functionality that you can specify which of the custom properties for the IP address have effect on this. And also, I'm going to show you later, we also show the allocation, how much you can, how much of a container or subnet has been allocated to subbranches. And also to ease the access management for subnets, we have added access inheritance. So child subnets and scopes can inherit from their parent. So you might get away with just giving access to just a single range, as long, like the root range, for instance, and all of the other ones will inherit that access. It used to be that you'd have to specify for each and every object. For DNS and DHCP management has also received some new functionality. For DNS, the zone migration wizard has been implemented. So similar to the scope migration wizard for DHCP, you can now migrate zones from one server to another. Clearing cache on DNS servers can be really handy and actually really gives a good argument for adding or caching only bind servers, for instance, to Men&Mice, because you can clear either the entire cache or just select an individual cache entry and clear that. So that's really handy for if you need to force an change to an A record through your cache. And in 6.4.5, we added the ability to edit the DHCP config on ISE DHCP servers directly. That's part of the improvement for the DHCP appliance. So it used to be that you had only, well, not only, but most of the options you have a UI for in Men&Mice, but since the ISE DHCP config is so flexible, some of the things needed to be done on the file itself. This had to be done outside of the system before, but today you can edit that directly through Men&Mice, and which gives traceability, for instance, for who does which changes through that config. And that's similar to what we are already doing on the bind servers. But I guess that's enough for the presentation, and I will go about and demonstrate the new features. So let me just set up. All right, and here is my Men&Mice console 6.4.5. So the first thing that I want to show you is the new container object in the IP address management. So the idea is that containers only contain subnets, and even so they should not contain IP addresses. It's like thought for the larger ones, and when you install 6.4, the root ranges actually are converted to containers, and you see that different icon for them. The yellow triangle here is basically an alert which tells you that there are rogue IP addresses within that container. So apparently, for instance, someone has yet to define a subnet. We can show the IP addresses that are rogue, and you can use that information to determine what IP addresses actually need a subnet to belong to. And like if you have ARP cache reading enabled from the routers, some routers might be routing IP addresses in subnets that they route, but that subnet doesn't exist in Men&Mice. So you could figure that out indirectly with this. And so another nice feature here is that you are able to see how much you have allocated to subranges. For instance, this /8 here is 34% allocated, so there is plenty of space left. But you could see very easily in containers that are almost filling up that you have no space for other subnets, and yeah, that's a good warning sign. Also, the containers also like the new subnets that you create. Sorry, it's not what I wanted to do. If you allocate subnets out of the container, let's say I create a /20 here. The new range actually inherits the properties of the container, but only the default properties. You can override this, but it's just to make certain things more consistent. Like if you want to have all of the or a particular /8 in the same country, for instance. So this is handy as well. So the access inheritance is similar. If I go to access here, we have the inherit access checkmark for each of the subnets. That means that they inherit the access from their parent. But if you click on the apply access inheritance to child ranges, it will basically check that checkbox for all of the child subnets, and they will inherit from this particular parent. Also, if you go to initial access for the IP address ranges, we have the checkbox here that they inherit the access by default. So the new subnets coming in actually inherit from their parent, which makes access definitions much easier. So you could delegate access to a /8, and you know that everyone that if subnet is created beneath that, the same people still get access to those subnets. So another thing is the subnet utilization history. Let me find a server here which has some data. So we are collecting the subnet utilization history every 30 minutes in version 6.4, and you were able to see how it is trending with time. You see here the gray areas are basically telling you which is the minimum maximum of that day. So it's collected every 30 minutes, and then it's condensed for every day as an average value. So it's a bit different if you take a look at the last 24 hours. You basically see every data collection point here. But tomorrow this would be averaged out and into a mean, average, and max value. And it's split to actually dynamic and static addresses. This particular subnet has very little static part. So, but this goes hand in hand with the subnet monitoring, which you configure. So once you configure the subnet monitoring, you specify the thresholds for the monitor, and it will only collect that history for those subnets which you have configured that for, or if you have done it globally, it will do it for all subnets. It's possible because the utilization history collection basically made us implement the ability to determine the address in use. Like I mentioned before, was hard coded, but now you can select which of the basically attributes of the IP actually affect the status. And if you you have the ability to say which of the properties actually should affect this. So you might not want to have hardware address, for instance, or last updated affect the free status. So I guess a generic case would be just a description on the IP address. You wouldn't want the description on the IP address to actually say that it's not free. And this has actually been requested by a few customers. And the device and interface inventory, which has been introduced in 6.4, basically adds the ability for devices. So if I go here to device define custom properties, we have here two new object types, devices and interfaces, and all of these are custom attributes of those objects. So interfaces are like a child object of devices, and generic case would be like a router. So if I just go through the procedure of creating a device, and in this case I added a type here, it's a router, and it's in Iceland, and I am responsible for that. We get a device properties dialog where you get the properties of the actual device, when you can add interfaces to it, optional hardware address, and a description. And each interface can have, each device can have multiple interfaces, and each of the interfaces can also have multiple IP addresses. So right now, this is the router has one interface and is linked to a single IP address. And you can add more interfaces, and link that to another IP address, or for instance. So now we have this device, and you have all of the overview of what belongs to that device. You can find devices, like if you have a large collection of such devices, you basically I search for router, it matches the name. We can also search by IP address, hardware address, or the name of the interface. So the search is extensive. However, the biggest overview that you get is if you open up the subnets. You basically see the, well, let me see. Yep, sorry. Basically see that the device and interface are displayed within the IP address grid here. So 18 and 19 are linked to ETH1 and 1, ETH0 and 1 on this router. So this is like for the customers that have been using this as a great overview and additional information for their IP address management. And if an IP address is linked to a interface and device, it's considered to be in use as well. So that pretty much covers the new IP address improvements. Also, we have DNS improvements, like I mentioned before. I want to demonstrate the migrate zone wizard. It's similar to the migrate scope wizard. It's a bit simpler. Basically, select a zone, say migrate, like I did here, and say where it's supposed to go. And you have an option of deleting the original zone or not. This is can be really helpful if you're building a new server based on another one, for instance, and it doesn't take too long, I guess. and there's not much more to it. You see that the zone is actually on the other server right now, was deleted from the original one. Oh, and for DNS as well, it's possible to clear the cache, like I mentioned. So say this server here would be a caching only server, which it isn't, but you have the ability to clear the cache, so entire cache, or you can name what you want to be cleared. So you can force the change through. So it would clear that particular entry. It's also possible to view the cache entries, which is quite well. Thought that I had something here. Yeah, for instance, this one. So you basically have a very big overview of what actually is in the cache. This is directly from the cache of the server. So you might, if you were not understanding, for instance, why some record is resolving to a different IP, you could check the cache like this. Yeah, and it's possible to clear the cache on any of the servers. So it's also possible on the Windows servers. So for the DHCP management, we now have the ability to edit the config. To edit the config directly. So if you click on the advanced button, which is very similar to what we do on the bind servers, you get the tabs here, and but basically the other tabs are all of the includes in the DHCP config. You can add to that. You can even add new scopes to this, and or host declarations. If there's something custom you're doing on the ICDSB config, this is a good way to do that, and yet have the audit trail tell you who did that change. But to give you the new product line, so those are the appliances, and I have one environment here which I have already added a few appliances to DT appliances, DNS and DHCP appliances, and the caching appliance. Actually these are all virtual in my environment. We do provide the virtual appliances as OVA files, which are very easily deployable in ESXi or VirtualBox, or it should be relatively. It is usually relatively easy to do that. We have mostly used VirtualBox and ESXi, and I think I'm not sure I'm going to go through that procedure, but once the appliances have been set up, and you want to add that to Men&Mice, for instance, here I have a caching appliance at this IP address, which I gave it. I click the OK button. It does some initialization, and you get the properties for that appliance, and have some configuration options like for the SNMP traps and Anycast, and also you have the network overview of the interfaces and network configurations, and have the ability to restart and shut down the appliances. So right now I have two of each type here, and when I add the appliance, a new server, basically DNS server, appears here in the list of DNS servers. For the DNS and DHCP appliances, it's very similar, but you actually have the ability to specify which of the servers is running. So in this case, DNS and DHCP is running, and it's also actually possible to run the web server on the appliance. So yeah, so that's about it. When you have the servers here, you basically they appear like any other server. The DNS and DHCP appliance actually appears as just any other bind server. The caching appliances are actually, since they wouldn't contain master zones normally, but you can add forward zones to the caching appliances. So it yeah. So that's a regular configuration on caching servers. Like I mentioned before, you can clear the cache on the caching servers just as any other on any other server, and force changes through. The options on the caching servers are of course a bit different from like all the regular bind servers, because this is running unbound in the background. We have various unbound configuration options here, like access filtering and DNSSEC and so on and so forth. And also we do have the ability to manage the local zones on the unbound servers, which is also an unbound specific feature. So yeah, and with the appliances, like I mentioned before, the big advantage is that Men&Mice will take care of updating the services and the OS for you. So with that came the need for the a proper update management, and we do have much better overview of the components which are running. If I click on the update status here, I basically see an overview of all versions that like of each component running on Men&Mice. The appliances here are like everything is version 6.4.5 currently, and you see if it's up to date or offline, for instance, like here. Yeah, and like it's a bit different for when you upgrade Men&Mice, the DHCP servers and DNS server controllers are updated automatically, but for the appliances you actually have a checkbox appearing here, and so after the upgrade, the administrator chooses at which time he wants to update the appliance, as there might be a small downtime involved. However, if there is only like an update to the Men&Mice controller, the downtime is just in the management layer, and there's no need to restart the appliance for that. Actually, I think only OS upgrades require restarts of the appliance, so the downtime is very minimal anyway. But if you since yeah, I'm just going to demonstrate how the administrator sees the actually how the administrator sees the notifications. So basically, when an administrator logs in and there is a new version available, he gets an alert here. If he clicks the details here, he sees that there is a new version available. If he clicks view the release notes, actually goes here to our web page, which is well, and yeah, you basically see all of the features that are in that version. If I click here download, it actually just downloads the update package, which is about roughly 100 megabytes, and places that on the Men&Mice central server. And when the user is ready, you can basically initiate the upgrade from Men&Mice. You don't have to run any installer. except for if you're running a web interface on a separate or on your central server. So you'd have to reinstall that manually. But this is all possible from within here. So since it's has been downloaded, you can either do it now or later. If I choose to send everyone a notification email that I'm going to do this at the end of the day, I can basically start the update then. If I do it right now, it's basically telling me that it's going to update Central as well. And normally I would take a backup of the database. Since it's running on SQL Server, it will it's assumed that this is done automatically. And it will be upgraded for you. So yeah, I guess that concludes my demo when this is over. So yeah.
So I guess we can open the floor. We've been getting some questions during during the presentation. I thank you for those. But we can also open the floor to any additional ones now. So if anybody wants to ask it now, but in the interim, we got a question in with the release of the appliances. Can mixed environments still be managed through the Men&Mice central component? Meaning, do they have to do an either or can they have still like a bind in Microsoft mixed environment as well as appliances?
Yep, it's we're just adding the appliances to Men&Mice. So it's if you have bind and AD servers running, then of course we support that as well. Still, we just have more types of servers.
Excellent. So, so to reiterate, yes, existing infrastructure can be managed still without changes, and you can just add appliances in. Another question we got, I guess while you were going through the demo, you showed in the IPAM component detection of rogue IP addresses. Is that something that you can talk a little bit about as well? What's the extent of the ability?
So it's basically Men&Mice has a collection of IP addresses in the database which have some information on them, either as a custom attributes or as simple A records in DNS, or directly coming in only from like pinging or Arcache reading, and we're just basically collecting all of those IP addresses from the database which have no subnet parent. Their only parent is the container. So it's that is what it basically is.
Okay, so it does capture and identify rogue addresses.
Yeah, in that sense.
All right. Let's see. Anybody have any other questions? Those were the two that I had received. All right. Well, if there aren't any more, Eyþór, unless I'm mistaken, it looks like this session is being recorded. Is that something that we can make available to attendees afterwards?
Yeah, that's possible.
Very good. So if anybody is interested in accessing the recording, I know we did have one person that was having a hard time accessing the audio. So if anybody is interested in getting probably put it on the FTP server, and just go ahead and email me, paul.terrell or PAULT, or excellent, yes, I will just I'll send the link to the FTP server out to all the attendees or wherever we have it mounted, so you can review at your leisure. Also, I welcome any further questions. If somebody does come up with one after, feel free to email me or Eyþór directly with any questions. We'll be happy to address them. All right, well, I guess if that is it, I thank everybody for their time. And again, if anybody has any questions or if we can be of any service at all, please don't feel free to